Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fox Can Fix It. Today we're again working on my 1982 Honda Civic. We're working on the ignition system. Let's go. This Honda Civic has been sitting in a barnyard since roughly 2009-ish. I have gotten it to fire off. It doesn't sound the best. I replaced plug wires and plugs initially. I think there are some other ignition issues with it that's making it sort of miss and sputter. So what we're going to do is we're going to be replacing the ignition coil, and we're going to be replacing the cap and rotor, but also the ignition module. And I'll probably even show you how to test the resistance of this coil, because I'm not certain that it's got an issue, but I'm replacing it anyways. But we'll test it while we're there. We're going to start off by working on the ignition coil. It's right here. It is bolted to the firewall with just one clamp. Here's the passenger side strut tower just for reference, and your battery is right there. Make sure you disconnect your battery before you mess with electrical things. This one has a weird little coil wire that actually has like a weatherhead cap built into it, which is kind of nice. We will go ahead and disconnect it and take it over to the bench. To do this job, being a Japanese car, you're going to need metric, obviously. But generally speaking, they like to use only the even numbers. So, for instance, the coil towers here are 8mm and the bolt is 10mm. Rarely are you going to find a 7 or a 13 on something like this. It's usually going to be 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Just a hint. Okay, we're going to put those up out of the way. We have green/blue on the bottom, right here. And the top is black-yellow. Okay, black-yellow top. So remember, B-movie up top, black and yellow, and green at the bottom. Whoa. Apparently there's also a bottom one buried under these wires. So I'm going to see how in the world I can get to that one. There we go. Alright, so ignition coil, 2 mounting points. Boop. Let's go to the bench. Alright, so what we've got is good coil and bad coil, and we're going to test primary and secondary windings on them. Primary is going to be your positive negative on the outside here, and your secondary is going to be positive to tower. And let's turn this on. It's a little funky because part of my display is starting to go out. This meter is, I don't know, going on, let's see, 25 years old? Sure, I think I've changed the batteries twice. I'm going to make sure I'm in auto range. There we go, AT. And I should be less than 1 ohm on the primary side. And I am at 0.3. Okay, that's good on the new one. What do we got on this one? Jumpy. 0.4, 0.2, but jumpy. That's questionable. And then we're going to go positive to tower. And we are at 8,000 ohms, which is good, or a little over 8,000. Let's see what we get on this original coil. 9. So secondary sides look good, but I don't trust the primary winding side on this one. It's not leaking anything, but it is 40-something years old, so that's one of the reasons we're swapping out. Definitely has some questionable readings. Make sure it lined up top. Snug that one. I can weasel the socket back out of there without... Okay, when you do dumb things like drop sockets all the way through engine bays and you hear them hit the ground under the car but you don't want to crawl underneath it, get a telescoping magnet. That way you can just reach under from the side. Look at that. Ooh, trust me, if you're clumsy, you're going to need this. And if you're not, you're still going to need this. Just go buy them. They're cheap. Nailed it! All right. Top bolt. Okay. Coil wire. Coil is done. Now we're going to move very slightly over to the distributor. All right, we have arrived at the distributor. Here is your cap. This is just 2 clips to get it off. 1, 2. And we'll pull this cap out of the way because we've got to get to the module. We'll replace that cap in a second. Rotor is coming off. Lid apparently. Doesn't have a set screw. Oh, there we go. That's been on there a while. Probably not the best, but there we go. Doesn't look terrible. I did sand this, so it didn't look like that from where I actually cleaned it up a little bit, but we're going to replace it anyways. And right here is your ignition module. It is 2 wires, 1, 2, and a couple of screws. 1, and I think the second one is hidden right there. There's the second Phillips. So we're going to unplug this, move these out of the way, get the wires out, and we'll put the new one in. All right, you do want to be a little gentle when you're pulling these wires off because they've been on here for years. There we go. Needle nose pliers, and you can generally sort of finagle or persuade them off of there. Not much corrosion. Those don't look too bad at all. But there's some corrosion there. I definitely question this ignition module. It's one of the reasons it's coming out. Hopefully these screws are not rusted in place. That does happen. First one's coming out. That's good. There's not a good way to see this, but look, I'm loosening things. Look, no hands. Actually, no. Look, both hands. Also, look both ways before you cross the street. Do both those things. 1. And a 2. Maybe. Nope, not unthreaded all the way yet. I'm not sure how this sort of comes out of there. Oh, I see. It appears that this has to come off. Well, that's fun. Okay, so I did a little bit of reading just to make sure I'm not going to break anything. I've got that roll pin pushed down about halfway, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 pry bars, or pry bar and a gasket scraper, and I'm just going to wiggle this thing up so it comes off of there. I also sprayed some deep creep on it just to free up a little bit of that rust. This is what the distributor actually looks at when it's firing. So every time this comes around, that represents a cylinder, and that's when it knows when to discharge spark to a cylinder. That's why there's 4 little points on this star. It's like a fat little ninja star. Oh, there it goes. Remember how I said, take care of that and be careful? I just dropped it all the way down to the ground. So it's off, but don't do it like I just did it. And then make sure you grab your roll pin before it goes anywhere. Teeny tiny little roll pin. That's got to go back in. It's going to hold it in place once we put it back together. Then we can get our ignition module up and out of there. Looks like it sits on a couple little isolators. Those do not come with your new one. Let's do this backwards here. Let's go screws in here, then spacers. Now we'll get our screwdriver. And don't strip the heads of these Phillips screws out. Just snug. Here we go. While we're at it, we'll just plug these back in since I'm here. Now we're going to gently put this thing back on. Gently. Yeah, not damaged. We're good. And it has a flat side here. Obviously, it only goes one way. It goes a flat side right there. And that goes down to that level. I'll show you how you know how far this goes. See this little ridge right there? Almost looks like a snap ring would go in there. You want to be just at the bottom of that, and then put your roll pin in there. There we go. Roll pin is flush. That's perfect. New rotor. Make sure you double check. I don't think these rotors can go on 2 ways, but make sure it goes the same way she took it off. New cap, and what I've done is I marked where number 1 goes, and I marked rotation. Goes that away, and there's number 1. All right, that's all back together. We should probably fire this up and see if I did anything wrong. Good possibility, not certain, but good possibility. Carburetor's on. Ignition system has now been replaced and or repaired, so let's fire it up and see what happens. Contact! I don't know, that's not too bad for sitting since like 09. Still has some sort of hesitation miss, but that's way better than it was. It might even be worth driving, I don't know. All right, the throwout bearing makes a horrible noise when I let off the clutch, but other than that, so far, I've made it 5 feet down the driveway, and I haven't had any issues, so I guess that's a plus, right? All right, no matter what I do, there is no good camera angle for this. This thing still wants to buck at somewhere between 1,800 and 2,500 RPMs. It just wants to chug. Here, there we go. You see that? That? Yeah. That right there. I don't know what that is. I guess it could be clutch, but it doesn't feel like it. The way that's chuggling, it seems like it's starved for fuel. Test drive ended. Car chuggling. Bucking? I don't know what the correct term would be, but it's not terrible. But like 2,200 RPMs, this thing does not like it. But yet, not under load, it doesn't do it. It only does it under load. It's very interesting as well. Okay, so today we replaced the coil, the ignition module, the cap and rotor. We took it out for a first test drive, which went okay-ish. It bucks and surges between 1,800 and 2,500 RPMs. So if you know what might cause that, leave a note in the comments. I'm going to have to go and do some reading and some looking on the internet and maybe through a shop manual or two and see if I can't figure that part out. I can't even tell if it feels fuel related or if it feels ignition related. And we've definitely still got some things to do to this car to make it a commuter. And when we do fix those things, or at least attempt to fix those things, you'll see them here. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.